Thank you, Odhiambo. Good morning, everybody. I am really happy to be with you here today. And before I go on, I'd like to know who I'm speaking to. So I would hope that I'm speaking to some people who own businesses. So by a show of hands, I would like to see who here owns a business or is setting up a business at this point in time. Okay, see one person. Yeah, I see. I'm seeing some people raising their hands. Okay. Oh, and
Others
also
are
in the
look,
chat, I'm seeing yes.
others are looking for how to raise hands,
Or how
but
to raise hand. But I'm also seeing in the chat that yes, we have quite a number of business owners. So yes, you're the people that we want to be speaking to today, especially. So thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. As you have heard, I'm the co-founder of Founders Freedom. I'd like to recognize the presence of my co-founder, Martin Mutuku, on this call. Martin, thanks for joining. So I will share my screen and then we can go on to the presentation.
yeah, Martin actually gave us a talk someday. I think it was on something. Was it
Yes,
something like research or
market
something like
research
that?
for it. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yes, yeah. So thank you for inviting me here to speak to you. Okay, so today I've been invited here to speak to you about corporate governance for SMEs. Corporate governance is it's a wide topic. So what I will do today is cover a lot of the basics. And if you'd like to know more, you can feel free to reach out to me. But this is a wide topic. It gets into the nuances of different industries and the things that are coming up recently, like AI and ESG. But today we'll discuss an overview of corporate governance for SMEs. What are some of the myths and fears that surround corporate governance for SMEs? Why does an SME need corporate governance? Despite the fact that very many people think that corporate governance is usually for corporate level companies, the big companies, and not smaller companies. So I will begin with an introduction to who Founders Freedom is, because I think it is relevant to the talk that we're having today. So Founders Freedom works with founders to build businesses that can run in their absence and last generations. So basically, we are trying to help you as a business person build a business that even when you step away, it will keep on running. It won't fall apart. And so that means that even for generations to come, you'll be able to hand it over to the next generation of leaders, and the business will still keep being successful and will still keep on running. And how we define freedom is in two ways. One is freedom now, and that's when we say freedom to be able for the founder to be able to step away from their business right now. You put in the systems, processes, the governance structures that you need to be able to step away from your business, go on vacation, spend time with your family, start something else right now in the current moment. And then freedom in the future, which means you're creating freedom even for your family in the future and for the people who rely on your business in the future. Our mission is to help founders to build firm foundations that enable their businesses to run in their absence and to last generations. And that's pretty straightforward with what we are helping business people do to build a business that will last generations. Building a multi-generational business is quite a big topic right now, and that's something that actually you need to put into practice. It's good to discuss it, but it's something that you actually need to do things that will help us put it into practice. And after all is said and done, what we visualize is a community of successful, multi-generational African-owned businesses. We need to normalize the success of African businesses. We hear very many times successful African businesses falling apart. A person spends so many years building their businesses, and you hear of businesses like Uchumi falling apart and Nakumat falling apart and Tuskys falling apart, and you wonder exactly what went wrong because you see maybe a bus company was doing very well and suddenly it's nowhere. Maybe the founder passed on and it can't run anymore because the people who took over were not interested in pushing the vision forward, maybe because they had not yet bought into the vision. So what we want to do is normalize that idea of having multi-generational African-owned businesses. So today our focus is on corporate governance, specifically for SMEs. And when you look, I've seen that a number of you are business owners. And when you think about your business, or when we look at the businesses around us, usually we can classify them in different ways. We can say a business in a certain industry, we can classify them according to size, how much revenue they earn. We can classify them according to who they target and all that. But for the sake of this conversation today, let's talk about two kinds of businesses, a lifestyle business and a legacy business. So a lifestyle business is one that I will define as one that's built around the founder's lifestyle. And that's one that very many Africans start businesses, especially for the sake of survival. Maybe you've lost your job, or your salary is not enough, so you start a side hustle. Or maybe you couldn't find a job, so you just start a business because you need to survive. So what you do is make sure that you have a business that can handle your expenses. And very many people are in that area. There's nothing wrong with it, because of course that is what you're using to pay your children's school fees, you're using to settle your bills. And we are there. We are just trying to make enough to cover our bills for the next month. However, that is not sustainable, because a business like this, usually you find people are generally hustling. Some people even will do different businesses, whatever comes up to do. They will say, there's this tender here, I will go and apply for that and get the money. Something else is happening somewhere else. Maybe I can be a middleman and make it happen, just so that they can have the money coming in. With a business like that, usually you will not have a documented vision. Usually you will not have governance structures. You might be registered, but you will not have governance structures in place, because it's not very important. And because of that, the fact that it's a lifestyle business, many times it can be a one-man show. You have limited funding and growth opportunities, because funding institutions want to fund a company that looks like it's stable. Maybe it's not a one-man show. It has been running for a while and it looks like it has some kind of direction in terms of a documented vision. Then the second kind of business that I will categorize businesses as is the legacy business. This is a business that is built to grow beyond the founder. So a founder decides that I'm setting up a business and I want this business to benefit me. I would like to create jobs with this business. I would like to support my family, and I would like to leave something for future generations, for my children, for my grandchildren. So in order to do that, a founder will go out of their way to document their vision, so that they can make sure that what is on paper is what is followed. So sharing their vision with other people, so that even if they are not around to push that vision forward, the people that they shared their vision with can keep on pushing their vision forward. They make sure that they set up the systems in place that will aid the growth of their company, and they do that intentionally. And the other thing that especially is relevant for our talk today is that they set up effective governance structures. You will see that very many businesses that manage to last to the next generation, they do it because they manage to set up the correct governance structures, beneficial governance structures to them that enable the business to keep on running, because it's not left in the hands of individuals who do not know what they are doing, or maybe are looking out for their own selfish needs and would not care about the business lasting beyond themselves. As we go on, please feel free to put your questions in the chat, so that when we are done, I can just go and find your questions. And if you have any comments or questions, I can respond to them when I'm done with my presentation. So those are the two kinds of business that we are classifying it as for the talk today: a lifestyle business and a legacy business. So the reality is, as much as some people might want to build a legacy business, the reality is that 1 in 10 businesses live to be 10 years. I saw in the introduction about this talk about businesses not lasting beyond 5 years. And that's the truth. 1 in 10 businesses live to be 10 years. And that can be a discouraging statistic, especially for people who are working so hard to build businesses. I can imagine I'm a business founder myself, and the level of work that goes into building your business, and then you find that your business does not make it beyond the 10th year, it's very difficult to fail in that area. And I know people fail and start again and all that, but after doing the heavy lifting of pouring your heart into something, because building a business, you pour your heart and soul into it, your blood, your sweat, your tears, you're making big decisions, and it's a dream that you have that you do not want to let go of. So once you've established your business, you can't just let your business go down the drain because maybe you did not run it correctly. So it's important to, from the beginning, do your best to set the foundations that will help your business run successfully, that will help your business keep on going, and that you increase your chances of being one of those businesses that lasts beyond the 10th year. You can be that 10%, that 1 in 10 businesses that last beyond the 10th year. There are different ways that you can do that. Like I mentioned before, you need to document your vision, you need to put the systems in place, you need to have the correct leadership in place, you need to have the correct team in place. But what we are going to discuss today is you need to have the correct corporate governance structures in place. And a simple definition of corporate governance is the means by which companies are directed and controlled. That's a common definition. Very many people, even if you looked online, that's the definition that you'd find. There have been many definitions that have been given for corporate governance. And let me just get into a background of what governance is. So the term governance dates back. It's an ancient term used by the Greeks. It dates back, and a simple meaning is it means to steer, it means to pilot, especially to steer a ship in the right direction. So we can see how that relates to the corporate governance that we have today. And corporate governance is a more recent term, coined around 1960, and it describes the role that the board of directors play, the activities of the board of directors. It basically describes what boards do. And a board is usually put in place by a company to make sure that there's a level of oversight in the company and it's steering the company in the right direction. Just like with governance, it's to steer a ship in the right direction. That's basically what a board is put in place to do. So when we say that, I should point out that it's very important that a board that is put in place plays that role. Very many times you'll find people putting boards in place that are made up of friends or family, people who are just there to let's say, just say yes men, who are there to rubber stamp the ideas that they have and not challenge them to think bigger and to go in the right direction. But when we think about that definition of a board being an entity that should steer the company in the right direction, it helps us to understand that even the people who are chosen to steer your company in the right direction should be people who have the capacity to do it, people who are interested, who have bought into the vision of the company, and who will challenge the founder of a company, the founder of an SME, to push their company in the right direction without just saying yes, okay, or people who are not there just to pick, say the board allowances and go and then come back for the next meeting and pick the next sitting allowance. So when it comes to SMEs, there are a few myths, there are a few fears that we have had that surround boards in general. One of them is that SMEs do not need boards. And even when you call me here to speak about corporate governance for SMEs, it's a topic that very many people don't think will happen because they think that as an SME, you're not big enough to have a board in place. Usually you'd think about a company like Coca-Cola having a board, Safaricom will have a board. But when you think about your business and you think about your business being an SME, if you have not yet reached a point where you're asking yourself whether you need to surround yourself with people who will support you in going towards your vision, very many times people think that SMEs do not need boards. And that is because a lot of the time we focus on the role of a board being to control. And when you start a business, we start businesses very many times because we want a level of freedom. Maybe you feel like your company, the work company you're working under or your boss is not letting you do the things that you want to do in the way you want to do them. So you decide, let me leave and start my own business. And you want your own a level of freedom to do things as you want. And you think that putting in a board will take away that freedom to do things your way. And that's one of the points that we have there. To take away the freedom to do things your way, you will no longer have the business to just take out money as you want, spend it as you want, live life as you want. However, the board has another important role, like I mentioned before, of steering the company in the right direction. And with an SME, the board that is put in place should focus on that particular role to steer the company in the right direction. Yes, ensure compliance with the regulatory requirements in the environment in which the SME is operating, but focus a lot on directing the business in the right direction. How can this business grow? How can it get to where it envisions being in 10 years' time? How can we push it in that direction instead of focusing on the side where it's about control and have you sent me this report and why are you doing this way? Because SMEs are different from corporate entities in that sometimes the systems and structures are not yet in place to function at that level. So if we think of the board as something as an entity that steers a company in the right direction, we understand why an SME does need a board because SMEs need to grow. And if you want to be one of those companies that makes it beyond that SME stage, that makes it even beyond 10 years, you need to have that structure in place of people who think differently from you, that see things from different perspectives, and that will help you dream even bigger than you would by yourself. Then there's a myth that if you put a board in place, it can take away your business. It can kick you out of your business. It can take away your freedom to do things your way. It can interfere with or not understand family values or culture. Very many businesses in our African context are family businesses. They are maybe started by spouses and their children are involved. So sometimes we don't want to let other people in thinking that someone once talked about it as being letting someone into your bedroom. You're allowing people to see inside things about your company that maybe you might not be comfortable sharing with them. And with those 3 points, you can say, yes, that can happen. But especially with the first point of taking away your business and or kicking you out, we have seen it happen. We have seen it happen, say, for example, with Steve Jobs and Apple, recently with OpenAI when they kicked out the CEO. One of the things that can help you deal with that particular fear or that particular myth around governance is that we need to understand the difference between ownership, directorship, and management. So there are 3 levels in the governance of a business. So you as a business owner, you have registered your business and say maybe it's as a company and you own shares in the business. It is your role to appoint the owners of the business. It's their role to appoint the directors of the business who will make up the board of directors. The owner can be part of the board of directors of the business, but it's up to the owner to appoint people who will stay on that board and steer the company in the right direction. Then it is up to that board now to appoint a CEO that will run the company. So the board will work through the CEO. The CEO will take care of the day-to-day activity of the company, manage the company. So you think about, can a board kick a business person out of their business? In a way, it might be almost impossible. If you look at the situation of OpenAI, Sam Altman, who was kicked out of the CEO role, admitted that with the ownership structure, as much as he was the founder, he's quoted to have said that he did not own shares in the company. However, if you own shares in your company and you're the one who appoints the board, people can play. Ideally, those roles should be separated. But very many times, the reality is you'll find a person who owns a company and sits on the board, and then is the CEO of the company. So yes, because the board appoints the CEO, they can come and decide that maybe you're not performing in your role as a CEO, and they can kick you out as a CEO. but they can never kick you out as the owner of the company if you do not let go of your shares. So that's basically it when it comes to being able to kick you out of your business, because that's one of the biggest fears that's not said by business owners. They think a board will come in and say, okay, get out, you're not doing things correctly. But unless you choose to let go of your shares, that will not happen. A board can take away the freedom to do things your way, in a way. However, as a business owner, you need to make sure that you document your vision, and even the people that you bring on board to be on your board of directors and to help you steer your business in the right direction should be people who buy into that vision and understand it. So you document your vision and decide, this is the plan that we're going to use to get there. And these people will be behind you and push in the right direction. So when we weigh whether to have freedom to do things our way or to build a successful business, because very many times to get that freedom to do things our way costs something. It costs you time, it costs you money, and it costs you discipline. And that is what a board will give you. It will give you the discipline to push things in the right direction. And in the end, you'll get that freedom that we describe as time and money that you'll be able to live the kind of life that you want. So what are some of the benefits of having a good governance structure in place? Even now that we've talked about some of the fears that surround it, let's talk about what are the benefits of having a good governance structure in place. One is that you have brought in professionals who can help you make confident and quality decisions. These are people who can see things from different perspectives. You have your profession, you're the one who started the business, you know where you want the business to go, but we have blind spots as business owners. Even if it might be your area of expertise, like for example, if I'm a finance person, I would even still bring in another finance person to have an outside look into my business and tell me what I'm not seeing. Because sometimes you can take your business as your baby, and it can be an emotional relationship, more of an emotional relationship, and we are not able to make decisions that will benefit the business, the different stakeholders in the business, because generally as a business person, you have a responsibility towards more people than yourself, especially when your business begins growing. You need to make sure that business keeps on making money because you've begun to employ people. You need to make sure that business keeps on making money because your family is depending on it. There are suppliers who are depending on you to keep going. So you have responsibility beyond yourself. So you need to make decisions that will benefit all these other stakeholders apart from yourself. And if you keep on having it as not taking care of your blind spots, you might not make the kind of decisions that will be in the best interest of the company. The second is in resourcing the business. A board of directors, sometimes when you put directors on your board, they might come in and inject funding into your business. That's one way. But one other important way that we can say that they can resource your business is in their professional expertise, in their minds, in the minds that they have, the time that they put into helping you build your business. Another angle that we can look at when it comes to resourcing is that in terms of funding, even if you have approached a funding institution before, one of the things that they will look at is the level of accountability that is in the company. So when you have a board in place, it will make you more credible to funding institutions, to investors. So if you're able to say that I'm not a one-man show, and even if you give me that money and I say I'm going to use it specifically for one thing, very many times when you fund a business, you might find that a person tells you they're going to use it for one thing, uses it for something else, and then is unable to repay the money, especially if it's a loan. But if you have a board in place, the funding institution can see that you will be a company they can trust because there's more people than one, and there's a structure that will question and ask, so this funding came in, how was the funding used? How can we strategically use that funding to grow the company? So you're able to attract more funding into your company and resource your business for growth. The third is in oversight and accountability. One of the things that we look at is the fact that planning, it's good to plan. And sometimes it can be very easy to create a plan, sit down, especially if you're creating an annual plan or even a strategy. You sit down, do your research, write down your strategy. But very many people pick that plan once they have documented it and just shelve it and say, yeah, I have a document. And that's what, so when you ask them, do you have a strategy? They'll tell you, yes, I have a strategy. But where the magic really happens is in the implementation of that plan that you have put in place. If you think about it's February of 2024, if you think about the beginning of the year, you had New Year's resolutions, and if you think of very many times by February, those resolutions are out of the window. You might have a whole list of things. This year, I want to do this. I want to lose weight. I want to be more healthy. All that. I want my business to grow by this level. I'm going to reach out to more people about my business, put myself in front of people who would be my target clients. And by the time you get to February, things have changed. And if you look at yourself also critically, you might find that all the things that you hope to do by January have already passed and you're not thinking about them anymore. They say only 8% of people follow through on their New Year's resolutions and get to them by the end of the year. And one of the factors that plays a big part in ensuring that a person follows through on what they said they will do is that oversight and accountability. So in your business, it is good to have a board in place that will oversee how things are done, make sure that you're doing things the correct way, and make sure that you're doing what you said you will do. Some people who can check in with you and say that you said that by March you would have targeted this number of clients, that you would have converted this number of people and served this number of people. Did you try to do what you said you would do? If you don't have someone coming back to ask you that, sometimes you can say, oh no, maybe let's push it to the next quarter. We'll do it by May. But if you know that someone is going to come and ask you in the next board meeting whether you implemented something that you discussed, then you're going to be pushed, even for the sake of report writing, which, let's be honest, many times it can be for the sake of what can I say in the report that I did in this last quarter before we had this meeting. It will help to keep you on track. You will remember that you had said that you are going to do something, and so that you can come back and report and say, I actually went and approached these people. I actually went and applied for this funding. And in that way, it can be an uncomfortable process, but it pushes you forward and forces you to grow your business beyond the survival level that very many people set their businesses up as. There are many other benefits of putting good corporate governance in place, which include you can build a multi-generational business and all that. But these are the major ones that I would consider. And I would also add that it makes you avoid business failure. It reduces the chance of business failure. Like I said, it increases the chance of being part of the 1 in 10 that make it past the 10 years. And when we talk about business failure, we want to avoid that because they are higher cost to the failure of your business than just putting your business aside, closing it down, and leaving to start another business. One is that some of us have very good businesses. Some of us have very good products and services and we serve loyal customers. I know I have experienced that with some companies that have shut down, and you feel so bad because they had exactly what you needed. So you leave disillusioned loyal customers. If I give a personal experience in that, when Nakumatt shut down, I was very disappointed. They would, with all these loyalty cards, and you're going to collect points and all that, and they had everything you needed under one roof. Even right now, if you tell me that when I'm asked at the till, do you have a loyalty card? In my head, I'm thinking, so a loyalty card for what? I mean, what if you're going to shut down tomorrow? So you leave behind very disillusioned customers who liked what you had to offer. Then there's the other aspect of lost livelihoods. in that you are supporting employees, you are supporting suppliers, and these are people who are going to lose their livelihood when you decide to shut down your business. There's also the aspect of the lost investment. When you decided to set up your business, you have put money in it. Actually, if you've been running it for a few years, you have put money in it. Money for publicity, money to test out your products or your services, to create awareness, to serve your clients. You spent your time and your energy building this business. And so you shut it down, you lose that investment that you put in it. Then you also lose the generational wealth that you would have built if you had done things correctly and stuck with building that business. Not that if you do all these things, the chances of losing your business are zero, but once you put the correct corporate governance structures in place, you can increase your chances of being successful and avoid this level of business failure where you say you lose your investment and you lose generational wealth and you lose livelihoods. Just thinking about that should be able to motivate you to do the best you can. I always say just try to do the best you can in the situation with what you have in the situation that you're in, so that at least when you look back, no one can see that you did not do the best that you could. So don't be in a situation where you're going to look back and say, oh, I should have put in governance structures that will help me, because we have seen it happen. We have seen a person who has set a board in place, immediately they set up their company, and their company is very successful right now. 9 years later, their company is generating basically 100 million in revenue, because that person was able to submit themselves to the accountability of a board that they put in place that were able to push them in the right direction and to challenge them to grow. So you might have heard all this and you probably are wondering, how do I go about setting up a board? If you have a business and you're thinking about setting up a board, or you have thought about it before, and maybe you had been scared by some of the myths that I mentioned earlier, and now you're thinking, so how do I go about it? How we do it, first of all, is assess your needs for governance. Like I mentioned before, very many times people go and look for their friends, people that they're comfortable with. And that's okay, people who are cheerleaders who are in your corner. But you need to, first of all, look at your business, see where it's headed, and think about your governance needs at that point. For example, some people might say, at this point, I don't feel like I'm very good at financial accountability, or I would like to grow into different markets. So it's good to look at exactly where you want your company to be, where you want it to grow to, and say, if you want to grow into different markets, I should probably be looking to people to look for someone who has experience in the markets where I want to grow, or who has experience in growing into different markets in the region, so that I can put them on my board and they can advise me on how to do that better. If it's about financial accountability, maybe it's good to have a finance person on the board that can help you set up those structures of financial accountability in your board. Then you look out for different profiles of people that you would approach to be on your board. So you look for because some people might agree to be on your board, some people might not agree to be on your board, but just look at their profiles, approach them, whether you know them or not, but be clear on what you want them to do for your board. And say, probably you're going to be on the board I would like to be on my board for, say, 3 years. We'll be evaluating it every year, and give them engagement letters, some that they sign, that they know exactly what they're coming on board for. When you put a person on your board, they might have different skills, but there's a reason why you approach them. You might tell them, I know that you have skills in marketing and you have skills in HR, but specifically, I'm coming to you because of your experience and your skills in the HR sector, and that is what I want you to help me with on my board. Then you also have to make sure that you have a board charter in place that helps the board know how it is going to run, how often you're going to meet. It's going to help them know the expectations your expectation of them as a board member. Then very important is to make sure that you bring the board together and do a board induction, so that you can have a conversation about what exactly is this corporate governance, what exactly is this company they're coming into, what role are they going to play, And even after the induction going forward, it's very important that you keep on doing training the board members, making sure that they have a level of chemistry between them so that they can feel free to share among themselves, because you bring them in because of their competence, their character, and also the chemistry that they have among each other. Because if the environment is not good and they're not feeling free to share, then you will not benefit from having them on your board. So it's good to have that induction and also keep on doing the training of the board members, evaluate the board uh, preferably every year, and make sure that they are performing to the level that you want them to perform and they're still feeling comfortable to be on the board. So I have tried to give a basic overview of corporate governance for SMEs. Like I said, it's a wide topic. And you would probably want to know more. So feel free to reach out to us. These are our social media handles, email, and our number. You can reach out to us to ask any other questions that you may have. But right now, I will be open for questions. I've seen people have been sending questions in as I've been speaking. But before we go on, I would like to ask, is there anyone who wants to say something?
There are questions which I think we will go to first, and then afterwards we can open for anything additional, because we always run against time. So I think we'll go to the first question, which was from Melvin. Is it not true that when SMEs sell equity in their company, you take on another set of yes men who come in with their own agenda to package the company to sell or actually grow revenues? Please comment on a number of businesses in the healthcare space spring to mind, like Halton's. Yeah.
Okay.
The,
So,
Mhm.
yes. So should I
Yeah, I'd
respond to
like,
that first?
yes, just respond to one at a time, then we move on.
Okay. So, so when you talk about bringing on people into your board and they buy equity, and you think that you're going to bring in yes men. The thing with bringing in people who are buying equity into your company, and I think one of the mistakes that we can make as business people is looking at the money that is being brought in and not considering anything else. I mentioned the fact that it's important to be aligned in vision when you bring in board members. So you don't want to have people that are going to come and pull in different directions. So yes, there are businesses that do that, even especially when you see with even angel investors and all that, you find that they're coming to put in a lot of money to the business, and we can be blinded by the amount of money that they're bringing in, and you say, fine, take a share of my business. But you need to make sure that you're aligned in the vision, in the core values of your business, so that you don't have someone coming in having a large share of your company and wants to pull it in a different direction. So that is what I would say. That is what would cause that particular problem, in that you give a company to a person before evaluating them fully, apart from the money that they're bringing in.
Okay, thank you, thank you. There are some questions that I personally asked, so I put them somewhere. How do you get the right people for your board? You know, sometimes when they get in, you thought they were the right people, then they become greedy along the way, related to what Melvin is saying, and dismiss your vision and start looking for money as the main thing. So making decisions you are not even approving, and something like that. And can you still have control in such a way that you can kick them away?
Okay. So uh, what I can say about that is that, like I mentioned about how to set up a board, uh, you need to widen the scope that you're looking at. Very many times we approach people who are our friends, people who we know will agree with what we have to say. But I would advise you to widen your scope. What are the needs of your business? And then look for the kind of people that would cater for the needs of your business. And make sure that you give them those engagement letters that make it clear what you need from them, their terms of engagement. And one thing that really helps with making sure that they do what they're supposed to do is saying, okay, so I'm going to put you, say, on a 3-year term as a board member, but there's room for evaluation of how things are going for the business and how things are going for the board at that particular point in time. So you're not stuck with a board member who is not performing or doing what they expect or doing what you expect them to do. Maybe you don't agree, but you give them a chance to say, even them, it's not working for them.
Thank you. I think that is also related to what Imelda asked, which is how do you exit a board member? So I think it comes to the terms that you have stipulated, and maybe the duration will be evaluating yearly. There is another question that came from Melvin. Does the company registrar not ask for the names of board of directors and minutes every year? Do companies actually take the need to have directors seriously? I don't know if you got that question.
Uh, okay, so does the company registrar not ask for minutes?
Yeah, for names of the board of directors or board directors and minutes every year, do they
Mhm.
ask for that? And do companies
Yes.
actually take the need to have directors seriously?
Well, first of all, what I would say is that if you have a business set up as a company, say, for example, I have a company, I have a co-founder who is also part of the company. By that, you already have directors in place. So those are the people who are on your CR12. You can bring in people who can be on your governing board, and those are the people who can be on your CR12. So not all board members will be on your CR12, especially if you're setting up an advisory board. But if you have a governing board, then definitely you would have those people on your CR12. And if you're registered as a company, you already have directors in place.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So those are the ones that you.
So you can bring in board members, and they are not necessarily in CR12. They are just there for the time being. They are not shareholders, right?
Yeah, it depends on the kind of board that you put in place. You can also say you can have a governing board and they are independent directors. They do not have to be shareholders.
Great. Now there is a
Yeah.
question that came from Anne from Tanzania. That second name is a little difficult. What advice do you have for an SME in terms of cost of setting up a board? These things come with costs. So what would you like to say about the costs? They may be struggling even to sustain the business.
Okay. Cost of setting up a board. Uh, One, you can set up a board different ways. You can decide that you're going to do it by yourself and you approach different people and you decide that they are going to be on your board of directors. And hopefully you will do it the correct way, like just like I said, you give them engagement letters. The problem is that very many times we skip these steps, and that's how the board ends up not working. You end up approaching maybe celebrities who don't do what you expect them to do. They just come for the money. You can try to use a professional. Say if you come to us and I will tell you that we have a startup package for SMEs that you pay 150,000 to set up a board, put a board in place and do a board induction, make sure you have your board starter in place and all that. So that would be a cost initially. However, now even when you have a board in place, you can either do a board pro bono and tell them that this is a voluntary role that you're playing. And very many people are happy to serve on boards, by the way. Very many people are happy to serve on boards for the sake of that experience, maybe because they bought into your vision. So it can cost you a lot or it can cost you almost nothing, depending on how you decide to go about it. So some companies pay a lot of allowances. They have very many different allowances for their board members. And of course, they'll pay a lot. There's some people who decide I'll pay a sitting allowance of 20,000 per board member for each meeting. And of course, they'll spend less. Some people will say it's a pro bono role and I will make sure that I cater for your transport and I will give you food, I will give you tea during the board meetings. So it depends on how you decide to set it up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, there was a hand up. That was
Yes.
Beatrice. Beatrice, kindly raise your hand again so that I see you. Or somebody else who has a question or a comment that wants to verbalize. We have like 3 minutes or so. Yes, yes, my friend Gilda. Gilda did for us a similar session a couple of, like over a year ago. Gilda, go ahead.
Good morning, Paula. I'm glad to be here. It's one of my favorite topics. And
Thank
being
you.
keen in this area on SMEs, it's also. I just wanted to make a comment that I think one of the biggest challenges that SMEs or MMSCs face is what I was calling that founders syndrome, because you tend to find that you have your own vision, an idea of how your company should be running. You have your own idea of how you want to grow it because you conceptualized it and have a dream about it. And then many times the conflict may come, and I think one of the things that makes startups fear, SMEs fear bringing in a board, is because they may look for like-minded people, but as they bring them on board, when new ideas start coming in from board members and trying to help them think in a broader perspective, or even talk in terms of we now need to put in this sort of financing to be able to grow the business, you tend to find that the founder, more often than not, is not very comfortable with it. And that's where there's the conflict between the founder and the board. And when you don't trust the board enough, or you don't feel that you're ready to do what the board is doing to that effect, then there's a disconnect and there's a problem. So I just wanted to make that comment, and maybe it would be a very interesting thing for the presenter to make a comment if she has time. That how then do you resolve that founders issue, that syndrome, with the board ideas and the board vision? Conflict management there.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comment.
Mhm.
Can I comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So yes, I do understand that kind of conflict that comes between a founder and the board that they have set up. We've actually seen it happen where a person has set up a board and they're still doing things on the side and not taking things that they're supposed to be taking to the board. So a lot of this we understand is a subjective process. It's an emotional process, especially for a founder, and it takes a while. So you can set up your first board and it's not working, but that is why it's good to have guidance and support from people in that, maybe in that area, who can guide a founder and be in the middle of the founder and the board to make sure that they are working well together. What are the best practices? And I had mentioned earlier, I may talk about the board, training the board to pay more attention to the direct steering the company in the right direction and growing the company, instead of focusing more on controlling the company. So yes, I do recognize that that is a very big issue with founders, that founders syndrome, and it's a slow process, but it is possible for the founder to now to see how important it is to have a board in place with time and start to appreciate that the board is there to help them.
Imelda was asking the difference between an advisory and governing board. And then Caroline Mwazi was asking what is the reasonable amount for SMEs to pay board members? Just a range, reasonable range. Two short questions,
Okay.
then Jimmy will go on.
Okay, in simple terms, the advisory board you'll bring them in mostly as advisors. They will not be say like official board members where they come to your CR12 and they are being held responsible for the decisions of the company, because being a board member can become is a big responsibility, especially now when you're on the governing board and the decisions are being made in the company. And so you need to make sure that things are being done correctly. So when you're on a governing board, you go and you're on the CR12 and the stakes are higher basically, because you're being held accountable and you have to act in the best interest of the company, even beyond the founder of the company. With an advisory board, you're coming as an advisor. You're not necessarily on the CR12, but I would say that the way things appear to the public, even from the outside, we can't tell whether you're an advisory board or a governing board. So from the perspective of a person who does not know, you would still have the same level of responsibility. But that's basically the main difference. A governing board, you'd go and you'd be on the CR12 and very responsible, and advisory, you're coming in to give you advice and recommendations.
Thanks. Then the other one
And
was
then
about
the range.
reasonable. Yes.
The range can be very wide. Like I had mentioned before, you can say people are coming pro bono and you're providing food and transport, all the way to hundreds of thousands and millions, depending on the size of the company. There are some that will tell you maybe pay them a sitting allowance of around 25,000 per board member. So maybe every board meeting they come for, you can pay them 25,000 per board member for sitting allowance. So it depends on how much you can afford, and just try to make it clear to the board members coming on board that this is what I am willing to give, and see if they are willing to take it on.
Thank you. Then we can go to Jimmy and then we close. I know there are many questions coming, but they can come later. They can reach out to you, or they can be channeled. We can collect them and forward them. And you also shared your contact. Jimmy.
Yes, thank you very much for a very informative and educative presentation. I have three questions. The first has to do with what you've just touched upon, the advisory board and the, let me call it the legal board, the substantive board. From your experience, what would be the pros and cons of having either from the perspective of a founder or owner of a business? That's number one. And number two has to do with the appointment of the new directors for that startup. How would you, from experience, how have you seen founders appointing directors in a manner in which the directors don't all retire at the same time, so that there is a kind of staggered retirement and staggered replacement, so that there is preservation of institutional memory at the same time, fresh eyes or fresh board members can be brought on board. The third question has to do with confidentiality. If the founder has this baby and they are concerned about competition or other prying eyes, say from boards of directors, who would probably run with the idea. How would you, from your experience, how have you seen people handling such circumstances or situations? Thank you.
Okay, so for the first one, the pros and cons of an advisory board and a governing board, I would summarize it as, with a governing board will be a lot more controlling, because for a founder, there would be a lot more controlling, because they know the level of responsibility that they have signed up for. But they would definitely be more dedicated to making sure that the company is pushed in the right direction. They would probably, you see them coming for more meetings. And because when they're the ones who are they're at a decision-making level, they feel motivated to keep coming to and giving their views to you as the founder. On the other end, with the advisory board, very many people feel more comfortable starting with the advisory board, because the advisors come, give their recommendations, and get out. So with a founder, that is more comfortable, especially to start out. They say, so I can just come, hear you people out, and decide to do what I'm going to do. That's it. However, with people who come to advisory boards, some of the complaints that we hear about that is that, why should I come for a board meeting when I know I'm just going to be just talking shop and going home? Nothing I ever say is implemented. So you might find that the board members will not be as committed, because they know that you might not listen to what they have to say. So it depends on the level of discipline that an an accountability that a founder is willing to put in place, a governing board is definitely more uncomfortable, but it would be more beneficial for a founder to put in place. With the second one, with how to retire board members in a staggered manner, I kind of feel like you answered your own question there, because you can tell the board members that they're going to serve for 3 years, and you can allow them to serve for another 3 years. But even after those 3 years are over, some will want to go on and some may not want to go on. And you can allow some to step down, and all that depends on the needs of the business at that particular point in time. You might find that you brought a person on board for something specific, like I mentioned, maybe you want to enter a new market, and that has happened, and now you need a different skill on your board. So you're able to just say, okay, we are moving in this direction, so we might not need this at this point in time, and we're looking for someone else. But like you said, it's very advisable. It's advisable for people to do it in a staggered manner, not for the board to leave together at one point and then put in new people all together for the sake of institutional memory. So just do it in that staggered manner. Then when it comes to confidentiality, that's something that should be touched on in the beginning when you set up a board, in the board induction. Even when people are coming, when they're signing, it should be part of the board charter. When they're signing the engagement letters, it should be repeated over and over again. Two very important issues: confidentiality, conflict of interest. Those are things that should be repeated over and over again. Board members should know that everything that is said in the boardroom is not meant to be shared out with other people. So there should be confidentiality in the way board members do handle their business. I will honestly tell you that I have not really seen a situation where someone has broken that confidentiality aspect and how they have dealt with it. But I would tell you that that is something that must be handled from the beginning, and it should be repeated so that board members can understand that the role they are playing, they cannot go and reveal things they must act in the best interest of the company. They have that duty. So they cannot go and reveal things to the competition. And even when it comes to appointing people to be on your board, you need to know who you're putting on your board to make sure that there are people who are not linked to the kind of people that you might not want to give your information out to, that they wouldn't have loyalty to people who they would give your information out to.
So I'll call upon Antonia Mutunga, who's going to give a vote of thanks. And then after that, she is going to update us on WhatsApp from the admin. Antonia.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Lady Noel, for this opportunity. I would like to thank everybody for creating time to join Power Monday this morning. We are here because you are, and we don't take it for granted, sacrificing your morning time, your morning sleep, and being here at this particular time. It's a great honor, and that means we are growing. The numbers today, we are very high. We were almost hitting 100, and that's really commendable. Let's continue joining in for these meetings, and we are all going to be blessed together and gain knowledge. To our speaker, thank you so much. It's a great honor to have you here. Thank you for the great information that you've given us as business people, as employees, as employers. And we are sure that we will get back to you, or even call you back here to come and give us more knowledge, and we'll keep on interacting. I know there are people whose questions have not been answered. Let's continue with the chat on the platform. And you can engage the speaker one-on-one, and that would be even more better for you and even for your business. Thank you so much to the board that has put all this together. They always make sure that we have a speaker every single Monday, and they sacrifice a lot of their time to ensure that they put all this together, and even editing and making sure that the recording has been forwarded. Thank you so much to our chairman, Otieno Paul Peter. Thank you to Dr. Melvin. Thank you to the media person, Othiambo Lale, and to our moderator, Lady Noel. We are very grateful. Thank you so much for the time that you put in to make sure that Power Monday is on every other Monday. Thank you. On announcements, we have our upcoming market day next week on Wednesday. Let's prepare our products. Let's come and tell our stories and make sales here on this platform. We are supposed to have a meet and greet as in the first Saturday of April. We were to have it in March, but we realized the last week of March will be Easter holiday. So we took it to the next Saturday, that is on 6th of April. So karibuni sana, welcome all. Let's start registering. The cost is we will try to see the best cost that we are going to give us this time around, and we've already set the venue. We know the venue is here in Nairobi, somewhere in Kileleshwa at JJ McCarthy. We will be getting more details on that together with the price. So even as we wait for that, let's prepare ourselves. Let's get permissions from our works, and let's all be there. Let's make sure that this time around our meet and greet will not be the same again. And also during that time, we normally come with our products. So if you have something that you can come and showcase to the team, you're welcome. Come with your business flyers. It's a good place to make sales as well. Thank you so much, and see you next Monday.
Thank you so much, Antonia.